Hello, students. Welcome to our lesson for today. Today, we are going to discuss about tourism planning. Are you ready? Let's start. In this lesson, we will be able to define planning, explain the reasons for tourism planning, discuss the consequences of inadequate or poor planning process, compare tourism in developed countries with that of developing countries, clarify the roles and responsibilities of tourism planning, explain the barriers to planning, and analyze the tourism planning process. So what is the meaning of planning? Planning is a dynamic process of determining goals, systematically selecting alternative courses of actions to achieve those goals, implementing the chosen alternatives, and evaluating the choice to determine if it is successful. So why do we need to have a tourism plan? For the success of our tourist destination, an appropriate plan is necessary. The stagnation and decline of a destination or attraction may be due to the lack of planning or poor planning. According to the destination life cycle concept as defined by Plog in 1973, destination areas tend to rise and fall in popularity according to the whims of those in the predominant groups. Destination areas can carry with them the potential seeds of their own destruction if they allow themselves to become over-commercialized and to discard the unique appeals which made them popular in the first place. So let us look at the Butler's tourist area life cycle. Butler proposed that most tourist destinations go through the six-stage model. He termed this destination as a destination life cycle. Butler suggested that tourist numbers may be used for the S-shaped life cycle. Butler's model used the study of evolution of tourism destination to the decline and rejuvenation of the destination. So here are the stages of Butler's tourist area life cycle. A tourist destination will first experience the exploration stage. During this stage, only few people visit the area, and they are generally explorer or adventure tourists. They are usually interested to know about the nature and different culture and negative impact on the destination in less. Next stage is involvement. During this phase, the number of tourists start increase day by day, but they are still under the control of local people or the host community. At this stage, the destination started tourist market and season and changes some in social life and infrastructures because of the tourist demand. The next stage is development. So during this phase, the number of tourists slowly increased at the destination. Infrastructure of the destination developed rapidly during this stage because of local government unit involvement, and they also participate to attract more tourists, so they did heavy advertisement. The next stage is consolidation. In this phase, growth rate declines because of frequently visiting tourists. Somehow, they affect the environment negatively. In this phase, tourism becomes a major economic sector because more of the localities involved in tourism are providing each and every facility to the tourists according to their demand. The next phase is stagnation. In this phase, the tourist place is full of tourists. So the carrying capacity of the destination gets disturbed, and fixed tourist packages are sold by tour operators for this destination. Somehow, it disturbs the social, environmental, and economic aspects of the destination during this period of the life cycle. As you can see in the figure, it is the critical range of elements of capacity. Now, if you lack a tourism plan for a destination, it might reach the declination stage. So in the decline stage, tourist market lost because of total disturbance of environment and nature of the destination. Vacation decline, and only weekenders and day visitors visit destinations during this phase. But if you're going to have an appropriate plan For the development of your destination, it might reach the rejuvenation stage. During this phase of the area life cycle, it is trying to reset and start anew the attraction or destination. In this stage, there is an establishment of new market for the tourists. Now let us look at the Plog's destination life cycle. Stanley Ploggs has proposed a model of tourist destination life cycle according to the traveler's personality. The model is based on 5 personality types in terms of level of comfort, tourist desire, and how intrepid is this level preferences. In this model, he proposed this type of traveler's personality. So as you can see in the figure, it is going, the direction of influence is going on an opposite way. So the first stage is for the venturers or allocentrics. So the venturers or allocentrics usually visit the destination during the discovery phase. This kind of tourists are usually outgoing and highly confident in their behavior about their trip. They are adventurous and explorers, and they accept unconventional accommodation, and they usually spend more day at the destination. Next is the near venturers. So they visit usually the destination during the development phase. So these kind of visitors are usually excited about the new places, and they prefer comfort in their tour, and they are usually desiring because they can ask for more better services. The next one are the mid-centrics. So as you can see in the figure, they are visiting the destination during its peak period in the life cycle or in the maturity phase. So this kind of tourists, they have fixed tourist area. They travel to the places which have reasonable infrastructure that was built to meet the needs of the near venture. The next phase is the near dependable. So they usually visit the destination during the maturity to the decline stage. And this kind of tourists are similar to the dependable, but not so apprehensive compared to the dependable. They generally travel for a short time and stay for a few hours at the destination, and generally prefer fixed tour packages for their travel. And they would like to spend little amount on their trip, and they are usually seasonable tourists. And the last one is the dependable or the psychocentric. So typically, this kind of tourists visit the destination during the decline or the rejuvenation stage. This kind of tourists are unadventurous and generally show conservative behavior, and they want same comfort as they get in their home, and they prefer famous locations but desire little activities and generally prefer family or group tour. Another illustration here is the Lazer's product life cycle, which is somehow similar with Plog's model. So according to Lazer, the first stage of the destination is visited by innovators, followed by the early adopters, and then during the peak season or the peak stage of the destination life cycle, it is usually visited by early majority, and then followed by late majority, and then during the decline stage of the destination, these are usually visited by the laggards. So now let's talk about the consequences of lack or poor tourism planning. So when you lack or have a poor tourism plan, it might negatively affect the destination. It will affect on different aspects. First, the possible physical impacts of lack or poor tourism plan. It might damage or permanently alter the physical environment of the destination, as well as the historical, cultural landmarks and resources. It might also result to overcrowding and congestion, pollution, and traffic problems. As to the human impacts, it might have less accessibility to services and tourist attractions for local residents, And there might also be dislike of tourists by local residents and the loss of cultural identities. Also, lack of education of tourism employees in skills and hospitality and lack of awareness of the benefits of tourism to the destination area. Another negative impact of poor tourism plan or lack of tourism plan is on the marketing aspect. It might result to failure to capitalize on new marketing opportunities, erosion of market shares, lack of sufficient awareness in prime markets, lack of a clear image of destination area, lack of cooperative advertising, and inadequate capitalization in packaging opportunities. Also, it will affect the organizational aspects. First, it might create fragmental approach to the marketing and development of tourism, lack of cooperation among individual operators, and inadequate representation of the tourism industry's interests. It might also result to lack of support from local public authorities and failure to act on important issues, problems, and opportunities. Other impacts might involve lack of sufficient attractions and events, high seasonality and short lengths of stay, poor or deteriorating quality of facilities and services, and poor or inadequate travel information services. Now let's proceed with a comparison between the tourism planning in developed countries and of the developing countries. Planning is very important and should provide a quality environment for both tourists and residents. Target countries or states can be identified as potential tourist generators through research and market analysis. Proper planning includes government assistance in direct advertising to attract tourists, and the planning and construction of infrastructure facilities is a must, particularly in areas that do not have them. Tourism is important in bringing the much needed foreign currency to developing countries, especially when it caters to foreign tourists or international tourists. Tourism receipts contributed largely to the national income, increased employment opportunities, and the development of infrastructure. Government involvement in tourism is important in determining the cultural impact of tourism to the environment and the people, and in a developing society, people tend to adopt the lifestyle of the tourists. Now let's talk about the roles and responsibilities for tourism planning. The process of joint participation and close cooperation of the private and government sector produces the best results. It is actually advisable that there is a joint participation of both the public, private, and the local community in the decision-making process of the destination. The starting point for the tourism planning process in any country should be the development of a national tourism policy. Here in the Philippines, we have Republic Act of 9593 or the Tourism Act of 2009. All tourism plans should be given time spans and should be reviewed and modified at the expiration of their time spans. In the case of the Philippines, we have here a 5-year National Tourism Development Plan, which is periodically reviewed by our authorities. Next is, what are the barriers to planning? First one is, many people are against the planning in principle, particularly within the free enterprise system, because they believe that in the free enterprise system, they are free to do whatever they want. Next is, planning is kind of expensive. If you're going to have a proper plan, you need to spend on marketing and research. And when you do these kinds of activities, somehow they're kind of expensive because you need to spend a lot in data gathering and in promotional activities. Next is, the tourism industry is complex and diverse. There are lots of sectors that are involved in the tourism industry. And sometimes they have different perspectives, different principles that might result to conflict in tourism planning. Another reason is tourism is characterized by few large businesses and various smaller enterprises. So there are different approaches in this on the different kinds of businesses. Next is, let's proceed with the tourism planning process. So here, when we do a tourism plan, we undergo these stages. So first is we will be conducting a background analysis phase, then followed by detailed research and analysis phase, then synthesis phase, followed by goal setting, strategy selection, and objective setting phase, and plan development phase. So let's go to them one by one. In the background analysis phase, tourism planning process is a situational analysis that provides the basic direction for the succeeding steps. The national, state, or province tourism policy should be carefully reviewed and considered and interpreted at the start of the plan. It is very important that if you're going to make a tourism plan here in the Philippines, you need to review the Tourism Act of 2009 and at the same time, review the National Tourism Development Plan. Existing programs or activities of both the public and private sector organizations should also be identified in the background analysis. A description of existing tourism demand in the destination area using readily available secondary or published sources of information. Review major strengths, weaknesses, and problems and issues within the destination area's existing tourism industry. So after establishing the background of your tourism plan, you will now have a detailed research and analysis. It is 4 distinct areas: resources, markets, activities, and competition. As to your resources, it is very important that you conduct an inventory of the available resources that you have in your destination so that you will be able to know on what kind of development you're going to do in your destination and what could be the available resources that you could use in your tourism plan. It is also important to know your target market. So market segmentation is also applicable in this kind of tourism plan because you need to identify who will be your target market and what kind of strategies you're going to use to achieve your marketing objectives. Next is on the activities. It is also important that you know the available activities that you have in your destination and what else can you offer in your destination to attract more tourists. And of course, lastly, we need to identify the current competition situation in your destination. So it is important to know this one so that you can have competitive strategies and make sure that you will be far ahead of your competitors. Next is the synthesis phase. In this phase, a comprehensive tourism plan will produce conclusions on 5 distinct subjects: tourism development, tourism marketing, tourism industry organization, tourism awareness, and other tourism support services and activities. In this phase, it is very important to assess the current situation of your destination and where we would like to be. And after that, you need to set your goals, select your strategy, and set your objectives. A tourism plan has a relatively short lifespan of 5 years. Planning goals should be achieved within that period. Once the planning goals have been set, there are various approaches or strategies that can be employed to achieve them. The tourism plan objectives come logically from the selected strategy. Make sure that your objectives are SMART. SMART means specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And the last phase is plan development. The plan development includes the necessary actions needed to achieve the objectives, implement strategy, and satisfy planning goals. It specifies the following: the programs and actions you need to do to achieve your objectives, the roles and responsibilities of the public and private sectors in the tourism development, and the development and marketing concepts and opportunities, and of course, the funds and their sources. It is very important to know where are you going to get your funds to ensure that there is sufficient financial assistance for your development. And you need to have a timetable. So in this one, you'll be having a schedule of when you're going to start implementing your plan, and you need to have a detailed timetable of every activities that you will do to achieve your objectives. And lastly, the most important one is monitoring methods. Having a plan is not enough. It is very important that you need to have an evaluation and a monitoring to know if your plan is very effective. Whatever problems that you encounter during the implementation of your plan might be a basis for possible improvements in the future for continuous quality improvement. So that's the end of our lesson, and hopefully you learn a lot from this discussion. If you have any questions, you may just put your comments in this video or contact me for any queries. Thank you and see you on our next lesson. Goodbye.